It's like book club, but it's more than books, and it's not quite a club. Okay, so if you guys could time travel, would you rather like spend time like going to see all of the cool things in history, do all of that, or would you learn about your own history? Like, would you try to figure out like family stories and dramas and things like that? Because personally, like, I would definitely check out some major things in history, but I don't know a lot about my family history, and I think it'd be kind of cool to go and see what's up.
See, I take the other side of that because I feel like the majority of people's family histories are boring as hell. Like, you just learn about a bunch of potato farmers, potato farming. We don't all have deep, complex family dramas. Like, yeah, take me on the history route, please.
Or it's like your 15th great grandparent was someone special, but you also share that with like now half the world because it's been so many generations back that like how substantial is it anymore? I think I'm with Gabriel on this. I think I would rather like be present with some cool history moments that have been significant to the world. Although I would not want to be able to travel in the past in general. I'm of the firm belief that if I had the power to time travel, I would only go forward. I would never go back.
Fair answer. But in Netflix's Dark, our main characters stay in their hometown the entire time. Dark is one of, I would say, probably the best shows ever created, to be honest. And after making you guys watch season 1, I'm very curious just your initial thoughts and takeaways of the show.
As somebody who's always been on the periphery of genre fiction, something I've always been interested in, like from the moment that Dark season 1 came out, which was in 2019, it was inescapable of the conversation of, is this the greatest TV show of all time? I don't know if it's the greatest TV show of all time. I mean, you still got like the standouts, your The Sopranos, The Wire, whatever. But as far as genre fiction TV shows go, it might just be.
It's so interesting the way that the show's set up because I only watched the first season. We'll be watching the second and third season because of how good that first season was. That it's just a different type of storytelling than what we're used to as writers of more, books and journalism. Like all these things are just so different from script writing and show writing. The first season leaves you with so many unanswered questions. Like it gives you some answers, but then that only like you need more, you have more questions by the end of it, but in a very like way that trusts the audience. Like I don't think that the show forgot me. I think that they know what they're doing. They know that I'm wondering. And it was just created with the idea that there's going to be a second season and a third season. And with books and stuff, you don't always get a guaranteed second book, especially if you're like a debut. But like it's just so cool to see that it felt like they were thinking throughout the entire thing. And I felt trusted as a watcher.
I think that's such a perfect way to put it, was the amount of trust in the audience. Because I have finished the show and I can guarantee you every single question you walk away from season 1 with ends up being answered in the next 2 seasons. And I think that really gets at the heart of what this episode is about, which is intentionality in storytelling. To me, intentionality is knowing exactly where you're going, answering every single question, knowing the ending before you start, which is something that we have failed to see from some recent shows that I'm not going to keep throwing under the bus. We know who they are.
We've thrown them under the bus before. You can find it in other episodes.
Watch more Story Stack. You'll know exactly what we're talking about.
So, not to keep beating the dead horse, but intentional storytelling is what really can make or break a story, especially when it comes to TV shows of audiences investing so much time into them. And Dark nails it. Dark knocks it out of the park. Every single question that I had was answered. And it ends up, this is a show about, it begins with missing persons, but it evolves into a time travel show. So it ends up dealing with like very theoretical concepts. And I never felt lost. I might have been confused. I might have been questioning, but I knew that they were going to explain it eventually because they do such a good job of building trust with your audience. So for those of you who have not watched Dark, we start in this small town of Winden in Germany, which is an important note we'll come back to later from the production side of things. But we're in Winden, Germany, and it is this very small town. We follow 4 families as the show starts. Missing people start popping up. We learn that this is a pattern, happens every 33 years. But this time, in 2019 is when the show is set, our main characters start following those rabbit holes down, and it uncovers this insane time travel conspiracy that involves all 4 major families. I really can't say much more about it without spoiling things for both of you and viewers who haven't watched it, but it's just, there are some specific things that I can talk about, I think, and one of the first ones off the bat is the casting, because I think it's so important when you talk about intentionality. It is not just the plot. It is not just the script, what's written on the page. It really is all aspects of production. You could look at 2 different actors in the show that are playing the same character and know that this is the same character before it's even said, because they got people that genuinely looked like the same person. So our main character, Jonas, him in 2019, is somewhere in high school age, probably 16 or 17. We see an older version of him who's 33 years older. And me and my fiance clocked it immediately because they have the same face.
I did not clock it, actually, at all. I was like, who is this guy? Clearly from the future, not from the past. What is he doing here? I feel like I had theories. No, I definitely had theories that it was Jonas in my brain. Like, I definitely had theories, which, okay, to be fair, I want to clarify. We do spoil things, like, on this podcast. So this isn't a spoiler-free episode. And if you... I feel like you're allowed to elaborate on 2 and 3. I want to still watch them. But I mean, if these people, if we will have to talk about like key moments in the show, like even talking about Jonas being this other Jonas, like seeing 2 different ones throughout the entire time. That last episode, I think it is, where we get confirmation. Like Jonas goes to younger Jonas and is like, bro, don't you get it? I'm you. And there's this, before you even get to that scene, you see young Jonas and his like coat, and he has his hood pulled up because he's been wearing this yellow raincoat the whole time. This hood pulled up, and that's the exact same thing that this older Jonas has done the entire time, but a black raincoat that's the hood is pulled up in like this very distinct silhouette that is just so cool to be like, oh my gosh, like that's so cool how they did that visually. And then like afterwards you get the confirmation these characters are the same person. Also hisses me off so much, actually, because the only way for this loop to not continue is to break the damn loop. Okay, Jonas is like, don't worry, I've been in this position before. I know you're gonna beg me to let you out and let you change things, but don't worry, I've got this. Sounds like something that this older Jonas had heard before, and did it work then? No. Why does this Jonas think it's gonna work now? Why would it work? It wouldn't work. The thing that would have actually broke the loop is if he was like, you know what, I wasn't let out as a kid, so I'm gonna let you out, and I don't know what's gonna happen, but at least it's not gonna be the loop anymore.
Now, Lily, I think you just stumbled onto the actual theme of the show, which is the futility of fighting determinism, which, killer, awesome. I gotta go back to the actors thing. Oh, okay. As a writer, I hate actors. Like straight up. As you know, somebody who has a passion for writing long form content, books, novels, whatever, the idea of me writing a thing and putting my heart and soul into it and then an actor interpreting it, screw you, man. No, I put it all out there. Like, there's nothing to interpret. It's all there. Nobody needs to touch that with their mind. That being said, yeah, the casting decisions in this show were on point.
Yeah, the casting is so insane because there's even moments where you're introduced to characters simultaneously as different people. And then once it's revealed that they're the same person, you can see the similarities now in the casting. And so I think the best example, the show begins with a young boy named Mikkel going missing. you learn very quickly that he's actually time traveled to 1986 from 2019, and that he grows up and becomes our main character, Jonas's father, Michael. And so you're introduced to these characters at the same time. You see Mikkel and Michael in like episode 1 of the show, but you like your brain treats them as separate people because they're separate people. And then once you find out that it's the same, all of a sudden, at least in my experience, you could start seeing the similarities in their faces. And that, yeah, I can 100% believe that Mikkel grew up to be Michael. But on that note too, moving on from the casting and kind of going back to the idea of establishing trust, I think that the production does a good job of establishing trust very quickly and sort of training the audience to know that questions will be answered. And Mikkel is a really good example of it. I mean, he goes missing at the very end of episode 1. That sort of kicks it off. We know that he's in the 80s by the end of episode 2, but Jonas doesn't learn the truth about what happened to him until episode 5. Like, this show is just filled with dramatic irony in that your audience always is at least like 2 or 3 steps ahead of the cast. We know exactly what's going on in certain situations way before anybody else does. And so we constantly have these bigger sort of questions working while the cast figures stuff out in the show. So like they're still stuck on, where did Mikkel go? We know when he is, and now we're wondering how did he get back, because we still don't know the secret of the time travel. I think it's just, that is such an extra push for the intentionality of there's no way you could write something like that without knowing exactly where you were going.
It's interesting that you bring up the idea of how far the show itself puts the audience ahead of the characters in the show as far as knowledge goes. Because while I was watching through it, I couldn't help but notice that there were some points where I almost thought the characters were too far behind. Let me try to explain it. I think of the moment, I forget exactly what episode it is. It might be episode 4. Jonas finds a map that literally has a red circle around it that directs him to the cave that he needs to go to further the plot. And from a writer's perspective, I was just thinking about how ridiculous it is to put in a scene of a character folding out a map and being like, "Ah, yes, the red circle. I need to go to the red circle." However, I understand it in a certain degree because this show is so complex. It's so complicated overall that at a certain point you need a character to just be like, open up a map. I literally need to go to this spot. However, there is like the writerly aspect of me that's like, does the character need to be that far behind?
I would challenge you with that just a little bit to sort of give him a little bit of grace, because again, like, he got the map from future him, who would have gotten the map from his future self. Like, I can see those moments feeling a little lazy, but the way that the plot is set up, I'm willing to buy it. Kind of like how you're saying it is so complex that there are just moments like that. But also, another kind of important thing that we haven't really touched on yet is that this is very much an ensemble cast show. There are like 6 storylines going on at any given moment, and they're all so interwoven with each other that it almost felt like a break for me a little bit. This is such like an anti-second screen show, in that you have to be paying attention the whole time or else you're going to miss something. And so having moments like that where it's like he opens the map and it's a red circle and I'm like, okay, I can breathe a little bit. I'm not going to miss anything important in the next 15 seconds.
I feel like that's something we need to talk about. So when Ansley had us watch the first season for this podcast, that was one of the things she opened with, is that it's an anti-second screen show. And I, being the rebel that I am, I almost wanted to challenge it. I was like, yeah, well, I could play a video game on my laptop while I watch. Screw you. This show, I had this moment where maybe episode 2 or 3, where I was watching it like I was supposed to. Eyes focused on the screen. And then I hear my text notification go off on my phone, and I was like, oh, that's probably my boss. I need to check it. So I check the text, and I send like 1 sentence worth of text, and I look back at the show, and I was like, fuck, I'm lost. It was like that one digression for maybe 5 to 10 seconds was enough that I had to rewind the show. And it's been a long time since I've seen a show that required just that much focus.
And I so agree too. I also watched it subtitled rather than English dub, which forced me to be watching like the entire time, because if I'm looking away, it's German. I'm hearing German, and that doesn't make sense to me. So I had to be reading the subtitles, but then I was like, oh, am I missing like the visual cues because I'm reading the subtitles? So I did a mix of subtitled and dubbed, just a little bit, mostly subtitled, heavily subtitled, because I do prefer my foreign media that way. But when I would eat food and I was watching the show, and if I was eating while watching, I would turn on the dubbed version, which the dubbed version is pretty good for the show too. And that's always that's why maybe I prefer subtitles, because too often like I don't like the dubbed versions. But this show, I really enjoyed it.
I can't believe Lily beat us out as the most pretentious person on the podcast. I thought it was me, but she's out here only watching the subs. Fuck.
Yeah, you got played. But yeah, I mean, this is 100%. I don't want to say it's work to watch the show because it's so enjoyable doing it, but it is asking your full attention as a viewer to really understand what's going on. But with that, I think it rewards you in the best way possible. There are so many just completely full circle moments, and there's a bit kind of in the show where it talks about that, of everything coming back around. Everything will happen as it's always happened. But it's just literally everything that they introduce to you ends up being addressed again later. And there's a difference. There's some that they sort of position as very high stakes sort of things going on that kind of pan out to just not be as serious as maybe they were first introduced. But I would say even those moments grow with the show, you know, as we get bigger and more theoretical with our plot devices. It just makes sense to me. But a really good example, I think, is episode 5 of season 1. Hannah is Jonas's mom. She's having an affair with a man named Ulrich. They've known each other since they were in high school. They've grown up together. Hannah's always had a thing for him. He's always been with his then girlfriend, now wife, Katerina. In episode 5, in 1986, when those three are all in high school, you learn that Hannah falsely accuses Ulrich of rape because she sees him and Katerina together. And this is just like a completely jealous, spiteful moment. And then it's kind of brushed over. Like, we don't really go back to it. In episode 6, even like one episode later, Ulrich finds out in 2019 that it was Hannah that falsely reported him. And so that's like the final straw for their affair, amongst plenty of other problems for them. But it also acts as a plot device. And that is what gets Ulrich to go into the caves, which is like their first method of time travel in the show. And so, I mean, yeah, even just little moments where you think it might just be character development, and like this is just a moment for us to see that Hannah really is crazy, ends up being like a very crucial plot device.
Not to mention, when Hannah falsely accuses Ulrich of rape, in the 1986 plot line, that is affecting, I forget her name, but the girl that then Ulrich and Katerina like traumatized. Regina, they go and like she's tied up in the woods, and they're like, that's just a joke. That was just a joke. That is not funny, because they thought she was the one that did it without any proof. Meanwhile, she knows that she didn't do it. She actually has no idea what's going on, why they're blaming her. That was also Hannah's fault, mind you, because Hannah was the one that's like planted the seed that it was Regina. And you know, of course, that is now affecting adult Regina and her relationship with Ulrich and Katerina, and how she views these people despite them having lost their son.
That's another thing that I think is so interesting about this show, is that I really don't think, especially by the end of it, you don't walk away believing that any character is good. Like, all of these characters, even if they're presented to you in the beginning as like a very trustworthy, like they might do some questionable things in the name of good, but they're still the good guy. No, everybody in this show sucks. Like, they all end up being just awful people.
I loved it. Deliciously morally gray. You know for a fact that every single character in this show has done at least one thing that makes you go, ah, wow, okay, that person sucks.
And the crazy thing is, it's because of the time travel. You see someone in 1986 and you're like, oh, okay, like cute, like whatever, love them. 2019, like actually crazy. I mean, even Jonas, who's like our protagonist and hasn't really done anything too terrible in season 1. Well, I mean, knowing his future self is doing this shit, I'm like, never mind. I don't like you. Fuck you, Jonas. You're young and right now, and you think you're all innocent, but like you're doing this to yourself.
But I also think there's just such good writing because it's like you see those moments and you're still holding out hope for these characters. Like they get you so attached to certain versions of them that you don't want to see what they become. So like with Jonah specifically in season 1, and then there's some other characters later on that I think follow that same pathway very well. The police chief in 86, Egon Tiedemann, you're sort of introduced to that version of him. And I'd say he's maybe 50s, 60s. There's a point in the show where we go further back than the 80s in season 2 into like the 1950s. And we see a much younger version of Egon. 86 Egon is like lazy, genuinely like the stereotype. He sits in his office and eats donuts and doesn't want to do police work. 50s version is so earnest and like just wants to do a good job. And I was so like, oh, I really like him. I hate that he grows into who he grows into. But then in writing it that way, the writers almost like inherently put those seeds of curiosity in you that you have to keep watching to see how he goes from A to B. And I think that's just another step in the intentionality.
Okay, so you were talking about the intentionality of the whole show, and I agree it's probably one of the most intentionally, like moment to moment, is methodically placed out shows that I've ever seen. But it makes me think to the eternal conversation for writers of plotters versus pantsers is the terminology. A plotter is somebody who plots out their entire structure of their story well in advance, and a pantser is somebody who lets the story find them. For my own writing,
That's just hilarious because I've never heard that terminology before.
You've never heard about a pantser?
I've never heard about a pantser.
Oh my goodness.
Maybe
And
I need
us
to take
type
some
A
more
girlies
intense.
would never pants because that's the most batshit thing I've ever heard in my entire life is people writing whole books and letting the plot find them. I get it. You're writing because it's interesting to you and you don't want to feel bogged down by a plot, blah, blah, blah. I guarantee you are editing that damn book 10 times longer than I'm editing my book, okay? It is so much easier for me to create an outline chapter by chapter, scene by scene, look at the scenes and be like, you know what? That scene's feeling a little slow. Nope. If it doesn't excite me, I won't write the damn scene. I figured this out in the plotting stages. But you know what? There are some pantsers out there and that's how they write. And you know, if that's how you have to do it to get the words out, I suppose it's not bad. You make my heart just, it stresses me out. But to each their own. I clearly plot.
That was giving such the clip from Smosh where the girl is like, that's not fair. How cute. I need to calm down. That's what you were giving just now.
That's how I feel because I'm getting so like fired up about this, but I know that in my author career, I'm going to meet pantsers and I cannot have it out there that I hate pantsers. Pantsers, I'm not coming for you, okay? I don't hate you the way Gabriel hates actors. I don't even hate actors because I watch my shows on subtitle because I want to hear the actors themselves and their voices, even when they're not even speaking my language, okay? So I like actors. I like pantsers. I love everybody, okay?
how did I catch stray bullets in that? What the hell? All right, you know what, Lily? Let's throw down. Type B boyo coming for type A girly here. Okay, I'm a pantser. I let the plot find me. You're in the room with one, okay?
How did I not know this? I'm scared.
I was bringing this up at all because maybe I'm biased, but I think there's a validity to the pantsing style of writing in that sometimes a story really does just find you. The classic example that comes to my head is one of my favorite book series, A Song of Ice and Fire, the Game of Thrones series. George Martin pretty publicly refers to himself as a pantser. Like, that's how he created the series. That's a little questionable considering how much world building is involved in that series, but I digress. I remember that there's this one interview that he does where he talks about he has a particular scene where I believe it's Jaime Lannister needs to get from point A to point B, but George was like, oh, there needs to be more drama in the way, what if there's a flowing river that's stopping him, and he looks at his world map and there's not a river between point A and point B, and he just shrugs his shoulders and he goes, now there's a river there. All of the current Song of Ice and Fire maps are wrong. They're just going to have to update it for the new maps. And I over here as a pantser, I'm like, yeah, that's totally cool. That makes sense.
The amount of stress that I just felt rush my chest at the idea of having to like tell an entire fan base of like, oh yeah, you don't have the updated map. And like having to bluff my way through that, knowing damn well it's just because I didn't plan well enough. Really, I think is just the clear line between your type B personality and our type A personalities.
I bring all of this up because I personally fall into that pantser camp. I think it's okay to just decide later that like, yeah, we can update some stuff. Like my outline wasn't particularly correct in the first place. I got to give credit where credit's due to Dark though, because this is obviously a type A girly plotter type show, and they nailed it.
I also want to say that there's like a third category that some people will consider themselves called plantsers.
That's the lamest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yes.
Pick a lane.
And exactly, because that's my thought too. Because to be so frank, most of us are plantsers in some way. It's a spectrum, okay? And we're just closer to one side than the other. Because, yes, outlines are there to help plotters, for sure. Most pantsers have a rough outline. They're just usually more skeleton-like than a plotter's outline. Like a plotter's outline, they're going to get really in-depth with it before they start writing that first scene. But a pantser might just have, this is going to be my midpoint. I know this is going to be the climax. These are kind of my 3 characters that I know that I want to have, and we're going to let the rest happen. It's a spectrum. Don't call yourself a plantser. Don't care for that. But even the most, I think, devout plotter is open to the idea of you think a scene is going to work. And as you're writing it, you realize this scene is not going to work. This scene is dragging, or the pacing here you can tell is off. I need to figure something out while you're writing the book, and then you just fix it then. I don't know. I could never, like, this is how I get a book written, Gabriel. This is how I've actually written a book, is because I have a plot. So at least when I sit down at the blank page, I know where I'm going. I'm not sitting there thinking, where am I going? I'm thinking chapter 13. Yeah, they got to get from point A to point B, and they're going to get attacked by goblins. There's no goblins in my books, actually. But
oh, so you're pantsing. So you're making up goblins.
Oh my goodness. But we're all kind of on the spectrum here and there. No one, I don't think, just sits down, blank page, no thoughts, and just writes something that's a masterpiece. It's probably crazy. And no one has their entire book figured out exactly how it's going to be from the very beginning.
Lily would have a straight up heart attack if she saw my writing notes of character goes here. I think I'll figure it out.
Oh my God. I can see the aneurysm that you're having from all the way over here.
Ugh. Okay. This is also why I don't like time travel books or time travel content. I liked Dark, okay? So as a time travel hater, bringing this back to Dark is good. Because the problem with time travel is that I don't think people have thought it through enough. Most of the times when I read a book where there is time travel involved, I am like, the author did not think this through. You do not think about the repercussions of time travel, how it's going to affect the future. Does it even make sense? Like, are you able to change things? Are you able to not change things? I don't understand. And this is why I would go to the future rather than the past. Because why am I messing with the past? I'm happy where I am now. I can keep pushing forward with my life. But if I go back and I mess something up, I don't want that for myself. I don't want to know things that I'm not supposed to know. I want to be who I am in my present. I don't want to time travel, period. But it wouldn't be in the past and risk messing something up for myself now. So bringing it back to Dark again.
We brought it back twice. If we bring it back a third time, we're on the themes of Dark.
I think that time travel requires a necessary amount of plotting. Like, to do it well, you cannot pants time travel. I don't think at all. You need to be knowing exactly where people are at, when, where, why, how. You need to have that array of characters. You can't just randomly throw a character in because suddenly that has repercussions on all of your timelines. So this show very much, as Gabriel was saying earlier, type A girly, written out show. And it's better for it. This is when time travel works, is when you have someone that cares as much as the writers of Dark to put this intentionality in it.
And yeah, I mean, just kind of continuing off of that, I think that Dark genuinely gets better and better at that, of keeping in mind with the time travel element, where are certain characters at certain points at any given time. It just gets better and better in seasons 2 and 3. Without saying names, because I know that you both have not seen it yet, there is a character that ends up traveling back to 86 and then to the 50s. And in the 86 plotline, we genuinely hear characters talking about the man from the psych ward that escapes. And it's like a tiny little plot point in the back of your brain that you don't think is going to come back. It ends up being the character that goes back. And he's connected to the people talking in that scene. Like, so many tiny, tiny details that you genuinely think are just there to like create the sense of this is a real world. Because I think that's another writing trap that scripts especially can fall into real easily, is just saying something so that the audience has a sense of there is a world outside of these characters. Every single thing that is said in Dark ends up coming back. And it's so well done. And I mean, I think, listeners that are still here have just heard us talk for the last 30 minutes about how great the show is, but it's bigger than just us. Dark was critically acclaimed, and I feel like everybody that I've talked to in my real life has never heard of it. I know, like, I had never really heard of it when we started watching it. It was genuinely just like let's do it. Let's see what this is. The two of you had never heard of it. Nobody that I've talked to has heard of it, but I mean, it's won awards. It was included in Vulture's Guide to TV Shows in the 2010s as one of the most notable shows of the decade. The BBC has ranked it in its top 100 shows of the 21st century. BuzzFeed even listed it as one of the 25 best TV shows of all time. And then on Rotten Tomatoes, which this is the most impressive statistic to me, actually, outside of all of the actual awards. Season 1 got a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. Season 2 was at 100%. And Season 3 was at 97%. And so this is genuinely just a show that gets better and better. And I think if you walk away with nothing else from this episode, it's just the idea to give foreign shows a chance. Because this one for me and my fiance Jonah was our first real foreign show. Like, I had never watched one before for no real reason other than I was like, am I going to be able to keep up with the dub? Like, is this still going to make sense to me? Like, am I going to know what's going on? This show was released in the middle of Netflix's real first big international push. There were a couple of other shows kind of coming out in the same time period. There was a Mexican series called Club de Cuervos in 2015, a Brazilian series called 3%, and then just some other ones in there. There was a really big push for international content and sort of to give foreign storytelling a chance in an American arena. And I just feel like so many of them get buried. And I don't know, I feel like Dark is the best example of why you should not overlook these things. Go try it. See if it's for you.
It pains me how many books I will never read because I don't speak another language. The beautiful thing about shows is that we do get like subs and dubs, and you can still like have more of a presence within the show because you are seeing the imagery. You don't need the imagery described to you in a certain way. It's not as flowery and metaphorical as prose. You can still really feel present in foreign films in a way that you can't necessarily with literature. I mean, there are beautiful translations of books that is totally fair, but there's always going to be a part of me that wonders when I read a book that I know is translated, what am I missing? And this show, like, I feel like it really gives you everything.
I may hate actors, but body language is universal. So when you watch a foreign show, I mean, you're still understanding that element of it. So actors can live for another day, I guess.